9, 10. Where does it face? Here or here at the side?
Pointing at you.
Oh, it's one of those shotgun mics. Okay.
That's perfect.
Okay. Because I was like, is this a condenser? Or is it Hi, my name is Su Ling Chan. I am a voice actor and I've been in a couple of international video games like Honkai Star Rail, Path to Nowhere. I'm also in a couple of local games like No Straight Roads, as well as Company Man, Eximius, and Hoodwink. Well, it started off like way back in 1999, and I went for an audition in my teens, and I booked my first commercial with Hotlink, and I remember doing that with Jit Murad, so I was a bit starstruck when I went into the recording booth, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's Jit Murad. And then we did a couple of Hotlink commercials, and that was how I started my career in voice acting. So I actually did an audition way back in 2012 for this Malaysian game called Hoodwink. I do believe it's one of the first Malaysian games to implement like voices in their game. And I was working with a studio at that time. It was ImagineX. I did a couple of commercials with them, like IKEA commercial, Pepsi commercial, and so they wanted a young, vibrant voice, and they knew I really loved video games and animation, and they asked me to audition for it. And so I auditioned for it, and then after that, that's how I got my first video game role. There's quite a lot of differences. I think the first difference is that for animation, you get a full script. So you see the episodes, you get like start to finish, you know where the story is going and things like that. For video games, most of the video game work that I've been doing, you get it on an Excel sheet and they're line by line. And so usually when we usually voice it line by line. And then there's also things like efforts, and there's also things like cinematics, and there's also things like environment, like cinematic environments, and so it's very, very different from animation. In fact, I think video games is a lot more challenging because for animation, especially if you're doing prelay, which basically means that they animate to your voice, you just act out the script and you don't have to worry about anything. For video games, you've got to worry about timing. Like in Honkai Star Rail, they actually use AI technology to help with the mouth flaps, so we don't actually have to dub. But for other video game work like Path to Nowhere, I actually have to hear the Mandarin voiceover first and then match the pacing and the timing so that when they put it into the game, it matches. And in other video games, I have to dub. I actually have to match the mouth flaps and stuff like that. Some of the lines are out of context, so it depends on the video game. Like some video games, they only give you your character lines. They don't give you the lines of the other characters for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I guess NDA, all that kind of stuff. So you don't really know where this line is. It's almost like a floating line. And sometimes the lines do float. Like when you're walking around, especially for NPCs, you're walking around, then you hear this line, but then you have to make sense of the performance. You have to give it life and context, you yourself, even though there's none. So unlike animation, where it's like a script, where it's start to finish, you have somebody that's talking to you and all that, for video games, it's really, sometimes it's very difficult to figure out what that line means and in what context. And that's why for video games, a director is really, really important. I think when you first start, it gets a bit difficult in the sense like you do need a day job to give you money because you're not going to get success right off the bat. And it may take many, many years for you to get success right off the bat. I've been working since 1999, so I've had like decades full of experience, and I still find that it's a very difficult job. It's a very difficult path. And so I think you do need to have, when you're starting out, you do need to have a day job to bring in the money, and especially if you pay for coaching or workshops or lessons and stuff like that, those things cost money. To get your studio set up, that also costs money. And like for me to pursue work like Honkai Star Rail and Path to Nowhere, my studio and Netflix, so I'm on a couple of Netflix dubs as well as Netflix animations, my studio is broadcast quality, so it's proper. It has soundproofing, like it's Chinese New Year, right? And there was fireworks yesterday. I had a session at 10 p.m. last night, and people were playing fireworks in my neighborhood. And when I closed the door to my studio, I don't hear the fireworks because I spend a lot of money soundproofing my windows, adding extra bulk to the walls of my room, having a actual booth. So all in all, I probably spent, including equipment, like close to 30,000 or 40,000 to build my own professional broadcast quality studio. But that's the reality, because if you don't have your own studio, then you have to rent a studio. So if you're lucky enough to rent a studio, that's great. But then you also have to find a studio that's going to open for you at 10 p.m. at night or 6 in the morning, which is usually when I do my Honkai Star Rail sessions. Yes, you can, because when I first started, this was before Honkai though, I booked my first anime dub with what I call, what do they call it? Moving blanket setup. So I had like these PVC pipes that built like a small cage, and then they had like these blankets put over them, and that setup was only like 600 ringgit. My equipment was about, my mic at that time was 2,000, my interface was about 1,000. So we're looking at maybe an investment of 2,500, 3,000. Yeah, and with that setup, I was able to do a lot of indie games. I was able to do my first anime dub, which was Kakeki Shoujo. Let me see, what else did I book with that? Yeah. Just to clarify, I did not do Honkai Star Rail in that setup. By the time I booked Honkai Star Rail, I had made enough money that I was able to pay for the upgrade in the studio. Yeah, so there really isn't a public association, but me and another actor, Michelle Tan, she and I run a Discord server, and basically we have people of all sorts of levels there. We do run workouts, we have some workshops there, and we always post casting calls, so you can see casting calls and try to audition for them and things like that. Yeah, if you want more information on the Discord server, you can find it from my Twitter. And if you want to find my Twitter, you just have to Google my name, twitter.com, and you'll find my Twitter account. Take an acting class. Seriously, I think it's easier to find acting classes than voice acting classes in Malaysia. So take one in KLPAC, take one at Emerging Artists, take one at Aswara. All these places, we have so many acting courses. Take a theatre acting course, take a on-screen acting course. A lot of people forget that it's not just about the voice. It's called voice acting for a reason, and I think people just focus on the voice and less on the part of acting. And an acting course would serve you very, very well, at least to build your foundations.